Hey, y'all, it's David Ducker coming back at you, and today we're going to be doing another RPG horror story. It's going to be the horrors of Numenera. Now, I hope this doesn't reflect poorly upon Numenera in general. It seemed like a great system. What I did get out of the world seemed nice, seemed fine. So I don't mean to disparage the system, but I had a terrible experience playing within this system just because of the people that I was playing with, unfortunately. And we had this great 50-50 split. We had two really good players and then two really awful players, and one of them was the GM. So it kind of goes to highlight how important the GM really is in a lot of ways. So we'll come back to the beginning though. So I met a gentleman on the meetup.com. He said, I'm looking at starting up Numenera, I'm looking for players. And I said, oh, me. I'll always go in for any game. I love to meet local gamers, build that local community, get it stronger and tighter. So I volunteered for the game, and I was talking to him about what he wanted out of the game. What's the world like? What's the setting like? Because I'm not familiar with it at all. What will our party be like? Just trying to get a feel of what's going on so I can fit in like a puzzle piece into this jigsaw puzzle. He didn't give me very much guidance before I showed up, but he said, oh well, the first session will be our character creation session. I said, okay, well, that's cool. He can explain to all of us in a group then, answer questions. I don't like to do a character creation session, but if that's what he wants to do, I'm not going to rock the boat. That's fine, because I like to make my character in secret, and I've done a video on that, secret character creation. But that's cool. I get to meet everybody, and I can always pull them aside. I pull people out in the hall all the time, or into the washroom. And discuss things with them aside from the main group all the time. So I can always just make my character and then pull him aside and fill him in. So we started the session, so we all showed up. I'd actually met the one girl before Megan because I met her on this forum, and I also had an ad out looking for players at the time, and she responded to both. So she actually had already come into my game, so I already knew her. So we came in, I met the other players, the GM, and he basically sat down and said, okay, everybody make characters out of the book, and we'll start right away. And I didn't really know anything about the world. Neither did, I don't think Megan did either. And our GM did a really poor job describing the world, and his campaign. He was just like, oh well, the setting is so broad. There's room for whatever you want. Whatever you want, throw that in. There's room for it somewhere here in Numenera. And and I'm thinking to myself, well, that's fine. That's fine. But if I make whatever I want, and you make whatever you want, and you make whatever you want, the odds of them fitting together as a team very, very slim. And the odds of them, as that team having that shared goals, again, very, very, very slim. But Megan went through and she made up her character. And she's telling everybody about her character as she's making it. She's like, oh, well, I'll be a herdsman, and this is the animal I raise, and it's this crazy sci-fi animal, and this is my religion, and this is my family, and this is my, so she fully detailed her character. So right away, there's no mystery. I know exactly who she is before I meet her. So from a metagame perspective, that's going to make it really hard to roleplay all of the getting to know you scenes, all of the, oh, who are you, what god do you worship, where's your family from, what do you do for a living. It's going to be very tedious to do it in character now that I know it all out of character, which is why I prefer secret character creation. But she had a plot hook, and she was like, okay, my village disappeared, and there's this black orb left in its place, and I've got to investigate this black orb. And it's this immovable orb; it can't be moved from the spot. So the story of my character will be this investigation. And the GM was cool with that. The other player had a build. He had his sheet made, and he said, "Oh, I'm a cleric." And then like that was all he had. He's like, "I'm a prophet, a cleric of a god." And I was like, "Okay, well, I didn't want to ask him out of character any more detail because I don't like to know detail out of character. I like to learn details in character, so I didn't ask him. He seemed to know what he wanted, so that's fine. So I went through with the GM. You know, I talked to him. What do you want? He didn't want. He's whatever you want. Make whatever you want. And I'm like, well, the odds of me fitting in with them are really slim. But since I had heard Megan's plot hook, in my head, I thought I'll have the same plot hook. My city disappeared, and there's this black immovable orb left in its place. So now I can kind of make whatever I want, and that story will tie us together. So I made a character in my mind, and this is a character I was already kind of planning to use somewhere down the line, maybe as an NPC, maybe as a PC, but I'm like, okay, this character's awesome, I'll use him. I got him on my roster already. So I got the GM to go through character creation with me. It was really fast, really easy, really detailed, excellent experience. But I didn't tell him about my character, right? So he didn't know anything about my character's background. Nobody did. You know, his religion, his culture, his biology, because he wasn't human. And the GM said that was cool. I was like, are there non-humans? And he's like, oh, yes. There's anything possible in Numenera. I said, okay, well, what kind of non-humans? And he's like, anything you could imagine. And I'm like, okay, well, I can imagine some really interesting stuff. So my character's going to be really off the wall. But you seem cool with that, so okay. So I made up a character, and we did our intro adventure that night. Basically, they were already met up, and they were on like this caravan. So my character came out of the desert and you know, introduced himself, and I I introduced myself as I said, I am your paladin. I've been chosen by the one true God that you worship, that you've been preaching about, and I've come to be your disciple. So I hooked myself into the party, you know, like hook, and we're tight right there. So me and the cleric, you know, our characters are right off the bat, hot tag team. But I still have all that mystery. They don't know, you know, anything about me. They just know what I said. So come through, and that was pretty much the first session. We did some role playing. We got to a city, and we got a little bit of role playing in the city. That was about it. No huge problems erupted. I could see that there's a lot of potential for problems because there's so little planning done by the GM, but nothing erupted at that point. You know, I went out of my way to hook myself in with the other party member. So it was fine, and I have in my mind I had my backstory for being hooked in with Megan as well. So between sessions, I sent the GM my whole backstory, and I'm like, this is where I'm from, this is what my culture's like, this is what my biology is like. This is my plot hook, so I'm going to tie in with Megan. This is what my real religion is, and because I wasn't a paladin of this guy's religion, I was completely lying to him and convinced him I was his disciple when I was only doing that to get close to Megan. So that because our backgrounds were the real hook that was tied together, but my character is so sneaky that he wouldn't just come out and say it. So I came in like that. So I okayed everything with the GM, and I said, okay. So she's investigating these orbs. I'm investigating these orbs, but I don't want her to know I'm investigating these orbs. So I'm going to make it look like I'm a disciple of her friend, the cleric. And I'm going to try to squeeze her for as much information about the orbs as I can. So we come through at the second session, start up, and we start getting introduced around the town. There was some kind of festival going on, so we met some of the higher ups. Actually, during the day, or maybe this was a previous session, the cleric had set up, and he gave this big speech about how his religion was so great, and I was there supplementing him. It was an okay role-playing scene. The player of the cleric was not amazing, but yeah, it was okay. It was pretty solid B, no problems. And I'm there, and I'm also preaching about the religion, and so this attracted the attention of the city council. So we were invited to this banquet because it was a festival going on. So we start getting in. I start doing my politics. So I'm really getting this religion really tight with the locals, and I'm like, oh yes, this religion will benefit your rule, and I am the chosen paladin of the true prophet. And so we're going through getting these political alliances set up, and then we kind of went back and we were doing our own thing. We did another round of preaching, and this time I started to hint that my character was faking it, because I was using illusions in place of miracles, and I was using bluff in place of diplomacy. So I started hinting that in a meta kind of way. Their characters didn't know, but they themselves were starting to get a little suspicious. And then Megan had been doing her investigation about the orbs at the party, and she found this one sage who might have a book, but he didn't want to give it to her because her character wasn't high enough status. So I did a role-play scene with her, and I was talking to her character about her backstory, which was kind of tedious because I already knew it, and she knew that I knew it, but our characters didn't, which is why, again, I like secret character creation. But I went through the getting to know you role-playing, and I was talking about the orbs. My character seemed really curious about the orbs, but she never suspected that that's why I was really there, because I already gave her a reason I was really there. I'm the paladin of the prophet. I'm not to be suspected. So I learned about the sage and the book, and I went off to the sage, and I told him, the prophet desires to see this book. He's heard that it's a very holy book, and there are riddles inside of it. And so I really hit it off with the sage, and I got him to give me the book. So he thought I was going to give it to the prophet, but I just kept it, right? And I looked over at the other at the player of the cleric, and he's like, "I didn't order you to do that. What are you? Oh, wait, I've been lied to." And he starts to clue in, out of character, that my character's a con man. So I get the book. Now the problems came kind of from this point, because when I was talking to Megan, I established quite firmly that she knew nothing about the orbs. So I told the GM, I'm only here to learn about these orbs, and I think she knows about them. So, you should fill her in on the orbs so I have a reason to stick with her. And he didn't. He didn't talk to her, so she didn't know anything, in or out of character. So my character's like, okay, that avenue is done. I don't need her anymore. But I still have the book. So I still maybe need these guys to help me get the book. But then I got the book. And I'm like, okay, I don't need these guys to tell me things, and I don't need them to help me get things anymore. And I'm looking at the GM like, what are you doing? You're destroying the party. You know, I gave you all my reasons why I'm part of this group, and you're one by one, you're picking them apart, so I have no reason to be here. And I'm like, you know, well, maybe the book is written in a language only the sage can read, or that Megan can read. You know, I'm trying to give him all these excuses for me to stay and not fuck off with the book. And he never clued in. And he's like, oh no, you can read the book. And oh yes, some of the answers you seek are there. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to leave the party. And I just started sneaking out of town. Now Megan had been doing some investigating of her own, and she learned about what my character was up to. She knew I'd taken this book, and she kind of, there was maybe a little bit of metagaming there, but not much. But she actually caught me, and she confronted me, and caught me red-handed with the book, and confronted me. She's like, "Why are you taking this? I know that the prophet didn't want that book, and the book has nothing to do with the prophet's true path of inspiration or whatever." And you know, and I basically I tried to come through and say, you know, this book contains the mystery that we both seek, and we had some role playing. I was really trying to find some way to hook our characters together, but it didn't happen. She actually ended up attacking me when I said that I was stealing it. I confirmed. I'm like, yeah, this book has the answers that we seek, and I'm taking it so that I can, you know, learn about this mystery. And then she pretty much attacked me, which was in character. That's what her character would do, so that's fine. But so we had a little fight scene, and it turned into a chase scene because my character's not going to fight her. He's not a fighter, so he like turned invisible and ethereal and ran through a wall. And she tried to chase me, but she couldn't. It was an interesting chase scene, but she couldn't catch me. So we ended off the second session with the party being sundered, just completely sundered. You know, and Megan was in character, so that's good. That's what she should have been. And I was in character. But the problem is, our characters weren't designed to work together. And that's where the GM is supposed to provide guidance to keep that from happening. And he didn't, so we split. There's no reason for the party to be together outside of metagaming. We weren't going to metagame, so party split up. You know, I was talking to the GM, and I'm like, okay, how could we fix this? And we went, you know, I tried to give him a couple different scenarios to get my character back in, or to get them to chase me, and we'll end up back together at least. But so there was potential to salvage it. But Megan was so fed up with the GM and with the other player that she quit the group. And without Megan there, I'm like, oh, the one other good player is quitting, so I gotta quit too. Megan continued with our group, and she was wonderful, but she couldn't tolerate the GM's lack of prep, the other characters' poor role playing, and the lack of guidance and communication to some degree. So she got really fed up and left, so I ended up leaving too. But even with their, you know, some fairly limited skill set, I won't say they were bad, they were terrible, but they were, you know, C or B level players. But even with those skill sets, if you have the prep, if you have the communication, if you have direction and focus and a shared goal for your team, a shared world for them to come from, just these things that anybody can do, that game could have been alright because there were two good players. You know, and we enjoyed role-playing with each other. So even if it was poorly executed, if it was well planned, it could have been an alright campaign. It could have been worth continuing. You know, they could have got to keep playing with us, but since they were so bad and so unprepared, they didn't get to keep playing with us. I hope that they're still playing with each other, but they lost out on the role playing factor there. So that's my RPG horror story, Numenera horror. Let me know if you've seen a similar situation where the party wasn't constructed as a team, and fell apart, where the party wasn't constructed as a team and they fought each other, where you tried desperately to throw the GM plot hooks to keep the party together and he just ignored your help and the party collapsed. I'd love to hear about that. I'm going to sign out right now. I hope everybody has a good day, and I hope that you have some good experiences with Numenera, because it looked like an interesting and a good game. It's just poorly executed in our case. Cheers.